Hello, and thanks for joining me on Inside the Majors, the
I have returned.
edition. I'm sorry it's been a month since the last episode, with everything going on around organising the MEC, running the events, a few real-life things happening, and supposedly my real job getting done in between. The podcast has sort of got pushed down the to-do list, but we've come up for air again after round 2 of the MEC, and so here we are. I'm probably going to make this edition of the podcast a two-parter this week. This one, part A, we'll have a quick review of the Intimidator round of the series, and also catch up with two of our top split winners and, as it happens, championship leaders in their respective regions. Part B, which will be later this week, we'll look back at the first two rounds of the Sudspeed Majors Endurance Championship. There was a lot that went on with 3 full splits in both rounds, plenty of things learned, some rule and procedural changes between those two rounds, new website systems developed by Mike in record time to help with the protests, and come the end of round 2, I think we're in a pretty good place for the MEC moving forward. But that's all for later in the week, so after this, we'll get back to Daytona and recap the action in the 87s. Round 2 of the major series for all regions was the Intimidator, the Daytona 500, this year in the old school NASCAR 87s. Not quite so much bump drafting in these compared to the modern versions, but the racing was still really close and every bit as exciting, and even led to the closest finish of majors history. Indeed, the closest I think you can get without it being a tie. First up was the international region. The first half of that race saw Kyle Hendricks lead for the majority, but after some misfortune befell the pole sitter, it was eventually whittled down to a race in 4 on a long green flag run to the finish. And as they crossed the line, after 200 laps, it was Ben Doughty who edged out teammate Robert Northway by 0.06 of a second, with Hayden Kirk rounding out the podium to make it a Kiwi Sim Racing Speed Nation 1-2-3. And we'll be catching up with Ben here in a little while as well. Next up was the Europeans' turn, and just like International, it had a long green flag run to the end. The win was fought out by a group of 6 this time, and not to be outdone by the closest of the finish in International. We had Trevor Vavrovsky and Kyle Hendricks finish with 0 time separation, according to the results. However, the photo went Trevor's way, making it his second win of the season, and 2024 European champion Jesper Iracing came home third, only 55 thousandths of a second further back. So we actually had 3 cars finish even closer than the top 2 from International. We'll hear from Trevor shortly as well on his special victory, as it was also his 100th race in the major series. Last up, we had the Americas region round off the weekend. Just like the other 2 regions, we had a heap of green flag running to finish it off. But unlike the others, this turned into a race of strategy. It must have been something like 60, 70, maybe even 80 laps from the finish. Sector 5 racing teammates Nathan Dowd and Lionel Callisto made the call to try and get home on one less stop than everybody else. And so switched into fuel-saving mode and extending the stints. And then with a lack of yellows from that point on, made it work for a brilliant 1-2. Dallas Vataska came home third as the winner, in inverted commas, of the second pack on the alternate strategy. But for somebody like me who's a race strategist wannabe, it was brilliant to see strategy playing such a part in a Daytona 500 like this. So congrats to all our top split winners and podium finishers, and also to those who took wins and coins in the other splits. Now, earlier today, I had the pleasure of getting to chat with 2 of our winners from the Intimidator, Trevor and Ben, not just about the Daytona round, but their experiences with majors, iRacing, and racing in general. It was super to get to spend that time with them, and I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing it as well. With us, I have the newest member of the Major Series 100 Racers Club, Trevor Vavrovsky. Trevor raced with us first in 2016, competing in just a single event that year, but has basically been ever present since then. Aside from last year, Trevor's raced in basically every event, always in the pro division, and to the end of 2024, had 22 top 5 finishes and a single win coming in 2022. However, 2025 has started with an atomic bang for Trevor. In the European region, where Trevor is a championship scorer and contender, he's gone 2 from 2 in top split, taking out the GT3 division win at the Daytona 2.4, and following that up with a win on the Oval in the Intimidator as well. And as it happens, he also added a non-championship scoring win in the Americas region for the 2.4 on top of that as well. So, Trevor, congratulations on reaching the 100-race milestone and for what can only be described as a stellar start for the year.
Yeah, it's been a great start. Unexpected, for sure. I think the least expected one was the non-championship Americas region race. That one was just a kind of go over there, see what happens, knowing that some of the series heavy hitters have moved from Euro to the Americas region for this this season, and going up against Christian, Dallas, Ross, and those guys over there to get a win in that one was almost the least expected, but also the least important when push comes to shove.
But hey, it still feels good to get a W on your record, right? So almost 10 years ago, can you remember what brought you to the major series for the first time in 2016?
Oh boy, I'm pretty sure it was a one-off race for the Daytona 2.4 as a Predator route. And it was that Predator format way back then where I saw that and thought, that's different. That sounds like an absolute blast. So that was, I think, the original draw to the major series, and then ran, I think, just that one that year and kind of went all in with the rest of the crew over there for Grizzly, and we all just started running like crazy.
So what are the things that you enjoy the most about the major series? There's got to be a few things, having been around for nearly 10 years, but what are the things that really tick your boxes as far as this championship's concerned?
It's really tough. I think the biggest appeal that I've seen for the major series is there's always somebody to race. No matter what happens, no matter what the crazy format is, or if we're doing road, oval, open wheel, dirt, doesn't matter. You're gonna find somebody on track that you get to go wheel to wheel with. For me, that's some of the most fun on top of the just the variety, the jack of all trades nature of the series. That format at its core, that's probably the two things.
Now, I know that GT3 racing is something of a specialty for you. I've often come across you in IMSA races in the officials, though, as a prototype driver, not racing against you. So what is it about GT3s that really clicks for you?
Well, for the longest time, up until I'd say a year and a half ago, I was mainly a prototype guy. It was what I ran for officials. It's what I ran into the leagues. And it just started to switch. It was kind of what the rest of my buddies were running. And then once I made this push to join composite about midway through last year, I went all in, full blast, all GT3 all the time. I've really seen a big growth being able to just sit in a car, really hone in on it. I went 10 years and had one win, and now I show up and I had two wins over a weekend in a GT3 car. So I think the proof is out there that it ended up paying off a little bit. It's just something shifted, and I just started running them, and I loved them.
Looking at the major schedule for this year with so many opportunities to run in the GT3 class, it must have made you smile when the calendar was released.
Oh, yeah. I mean, seeing all those different events pop up, and I'm like, I can do it in that one. I can run that one. I can do that. It's definitely interesting, and that's a little bit of a shift for our schedule. That wasn't what I was expecting to see when it finally came out, but seeing it and looking at who came and who went in the championship from last year, obviously I switched regions going from what is now the Americas time slot back over to Euro, which I was in for so long. I was like, the way the schedule looks, let's give it a real go, really push for this championship, putting the things played to my strengths.
Another aspect of the major series that you've been involved with that maybe not everybody's familiar with is that you've been part of the competition committee. What made you want to get involved from the admin side of things? And what have been the main elements of your role since you joined the CC?
That was a while ago now. Just looking at different aspects, it's probably the same reason some people get into politics. They see something they don't like and they're like, you know what? I'm going to do it better or something along those lines. But it was, I think, right after John King started to have his issues and ended up not being able to help out as much. And there kind of ended up being a lot of overlap in the CC. And it seemed like they were kind of down on hands for certain aspects. And the biggest thing that I saw was the consistency and what was happening from a race control standpoint and stewarding and penalties and things like that. So that was the main thing that I saw and probably had some frustrations with at the time. And I wanted to get involved. I wanted to be like, maybe instead of type it in general chat after every race, complaining about what was going on, go do something about it. I felt like I'd been there long enough that if Mike was willing to give me that voice and let me give it a shot, and I think it went pretty well for a while.
Yeah, I often say be the change you want to see, which is kind of why MEC has come about. Outside of sim racing, what are your main motorsport interests? What do you like to consume as a motorsport fan?
As a fan, I guess nowadays it's basically F1 and a little bit of IMSA. Back in the day, I used to watch a little bit more NASCAR, but now used to be a big Grand Am fan. That was probably one of the earliest ones back on Speed Vision when I was middle school watching that. But I'd probably say F1 is probably the top deal for me now.
And in terms of attending events, is there an opportunity near you to go and see live racing? And if there is, what is it you get to go and see?
Well, I'm in part of the reason why I started so long ago in the majors is when it used to be the Northwest Club League, the Pacific majors. I am a Oregon resident, so I got that little bit of early access. I'm in the Portland area. I'll go to PIR. I've seen IndyCar there. I watched the Formula E race there. So I've seen a couple things in person. Big thing, I've gone down twice now to Daytona for the Daytona 24. Man, what a show. That is a blast. Just getting there, getting some teammates, getting an Airbnb, and everybody goes down and you just have a blast for a few days. It's great stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely on my bucket list to do as well. Daytona is definitely something that I'm going to go and do.
The scale of it is just, you see the track, it's really, coming from Portland where everything is like a little 2-mile flat circuit, and then you go there and the banking, the sheer size of the facility is honestly insane to see.
In terms of real world racing, have you actually competed in anything in a real car?
Every trip into work every day, I'm racing everyone else. No, not really. I've done a few track days. I once tried to drive a race car built by my dad by hand. Didn't go so well. Apparently, gears are hard to find at times. So no, wheel-to-wheel racing yet, but I have been on track a few times. Hoping to go back here in a few months. Hoping to take a trip down to Laguna Seca. That's my dream track to try and get to. I'm hoping to get down there this year, but it's all in my daily, so nothing crazy.
What do you have to take on the track if you get the opportunity?
So I originally started, my first car was a Ford Fiesta ST, and that was a bundle of fun. A year or two ago, I upgraded to a Ford Focus RS. So now I'm got a little bit more power, a few more wheels turning, a lot more weight, but getting to go around the track in that thing it's a bundle of fun. It's good fun. It's not like, it's just a shame because you can't do what you do on iRacing. I have to drive that car home. So you just can't do the same level.
I was about to say you can, but there's no reset and there's no fast repair.
I'm really excited for this new build because in 48 hours from now, I'll get to drive my home track all the time on the sim. Getting Portland on iRacing is going to be really cool. I'm going to finally get to see okay, just how accurate are these tracks? Because I've been there. All right. I know what this looks like. That'll be really fun. I really look forward to that.
Yeah, it is cool. I had a discussion on a podcast a couple of podcasts ago with some of the guys that had been to the Daytona 24 this year. That crossover between being at a track in real life and then in the sim, or the other way around, depending on which way it happens for you, and what that brings to both respects. If you've driven something on the sim before you then go there in real life, or the other way around, how that changes your experience and your enjoyment of it. So yeah, it'd be cool to hear how that goes for you driving around there, how this new scan works for you.
Yeah, I was making a joke with a couple of my buddies. It'll be awesome to have Portland in the sim. However, I'll only know how to drive it in the Renault Clio because that car stats match up perfectly with my Fiesta that I originally was taken to the track. So it's going to be all I know how to drive around there, but it's going to be pretty spot on.
Yeah, there's a Renault Clio time attack. I expect to see you at the top.
I don't know if anybody else will be on the list, but
hey, if it's a list of one, you're on the top by default, right?
There you go.
Okay, so bring it back to the 2025 Major Series. Obviously, European races are now your focus, and a championship run. That's in the plan?
It wasn't that way 2 rounds ago. Looking at the season at the start, if I'm being fully honest, it was going to be I'll run some rounds. The ones that I really like, really put in a lot of time for them. But the other ones, show up, get some points, see what happens, have some fun. I wasn't planning on necessarily being all in like I have some of the past years, but you win. You go 2 for 2 in the first 2 rounds. You kind of owe it to really give it everything you had. And now, granted, I love Daytona, both the road course and the oval. So I was definitely all in for those rounds, especially with the Daytona 24 prep going along with that. We'll see what happens. I think those were going to be 2 really strong rounds for me. If I was targeting on the schedule, those 2 would get circled, get highlighted. Those are good ones. We'll see what happens going forward. I did not have a great run of IMSA races here at Spa, which is the next round in the GT3 car. So we'll see what happens with that. The Indy 500 has been a, particular, not so fun time for me. in the past. So, we'll get through those rounds, and then I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens, because there's some competition in here, between Jesper and the rest, Jesper, Oscar, the sim racing Sweden guys. You just can't seem to get away from those guys. I can't think of anybody else that's really, it was this Garen Batten guy. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't think I have a ton of expectation, but I think I'll give it a go.
I would say, yes, definitely beware of the Swedes. That Batten guy, wouldn't worry too much about him. We continue to make some guest appearances in the other regions when the GT3s come out, or was the Daytona 2.4 a one-off in the Americas?
It may end up being a one-off. I'll be playing it on here. I don't think it'll be happening for this next round, and I would need to double check the schedule for some of the remaining ones. I wouldn't say they're planned at the moment, no.
Well, thanks for having a chat with us on Inside the Majors, Trevor. Well done on your perfect start to the year, which is what it has been so far as the Majors is concerned. It's great to have another 100-race starter in the Hall of Fame. Congratulations on that as well. I look forward to waving at you as you lap me at Spa this weekend. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. That was great.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the Iracing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Anybody really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
With you now, I've got another Daytona 500 winner from 2025, Ben Doughty. Now, Ben's a new name for most of us here at the Major Series in 2025. That's not quite 100% accurate. Ben did appear for a single race all the way back in 2019. As part of the very talented Kiwi Sim Racing Speed Nation team, the international region this year, Ben has certainly returned with some fanfare. Finished in the top 5 in the opening round, third for points though, and then winning the 500 sees Ben on top of the International Championship standings for Pro. And with some ominous form on the practice charts for round 3 at Bathurst already, could be shaping up as a title contender for 2025. So, Ben, congrats on your start to the year and welcome back, as I guess it is, to the Major Series.
Thank you. Really good to be here. I may have completely forgotten about that race in 2019. Was that the GT3 race around Spa by chance?
I'm not actually sure. It predates even me being with the Major Series. So that was going to be my first question. Can you remember all the way back in 2019 what led you to having that race in the Major Series?
I think it was a very similar situation to doing the majors this year, where I got a very last minute query if I want to do the race, and I turned around and said, yeah, sure, why not? And did Spa. I think I had a pretty good result that day. I can't quite remember the details, but I know I was in a very bright pink Mercedes, so I stood out quite well in the darkness. And then this year, Robert Northway, who's been in our majors for a couple of years now, he was pretty keen to have a good assault at the team's championship. So he asked around our thriving community at Kiwi Sim Racing who's keen to have a crack in 2025, and put my hand up, and we were away laughing, and I've somehow flicked my way into the lead of the championship apparently, which I've just found out about through you. So thank you for that. Yeah, very exciting. So we'll see how the rest of the year goes.
Yeah, obviously Rob will be really thankful now that he has to chase you down. So only back with us for a couple of races so far, but what are the things that you've been enjoying about the Major Series since you have returned?
Yeah, I really enjoy the fact that everyone takes it somewhat seriously, but not over the top seriously. So I think sometimes with professional level events, particularly the Iracing special events, you get to the point where the level is so exceedingly high that Joe Average feels a little bit downtrodden. I know I do. I'm a fairly goodish iRacer. But when you see the people that are 6K plus I rating just smashing everyone else, it gets a bit disheartening, whereas I found the majors quite good. I've done okay considering my overall rating's pretty good and my road one's a little bit lower. So organisation's been excellent as well, fairly clear and concise with what's been going on, which has been superb. The format for the Daytona race was fairly interesting, and it was good to see the ability to ask a question and it get answered effectively quite quickly, regardless of the fact that I'm from New Zealand, time zone with America is pretty poor, but I still get answered amazingly fast. So those are some really good positives from the series. The people you race with are actually pretty cool as well. Some faces I've been around with for a couple of years, and some new faces as well, been racing along. It's been interesting racing some newer people from around the globe, particularly in the international region. We don't usually see them racing our splits, particularly with oval racing, and to see them racing with us and getting amongst it is pretty cool as well.
Would you say oval racing is the discipline that you prefer over others?
It kind of depends on the results, to be honest. I've got my highest rating is oval, and it's probably the one I've spent the most time on. I do get a bit disheartened with how iRacers in general race drafting tracks and the short tracks. I find them quite painful at times. The cookie cutter 1.5 tracks are pretty cool as well. I actually got back into iRacing 6 years ago now because of dirt oval, but I am terrible with the sprint cars and dirt late models and everything. So yeah, tarmac ovals, a little bit of left to right stuff as well. And I'm pretty terrible on dirt road as well.
Whilst you haven't been with us in the series for the last few years, have you done any of the Majors 24s since you came back to iRacing?
I've not done any of the Majors 24s. I was meant to do it the last 2 years. I was roped into a team that Robert was putting together, but circumstances meant the team that was going to be predominantly KSR cars weren't able to compete. So I withdrew both times. It wasn't available in the end with the car. So not yet. We're going to try and put together a team this year for sure. Hopefully the 5 of us, which are currently competing in the majors, can take out that one for the year as well.
As the most recent addition to the team, would that mean you get the graveyard shift in the middle of the night?
Probably. I actually don't mind it though, to be honest. It means that it's nice and cool in the office where I've got my sim rig. The missus is fast asleep. She can't bother me. The cats usually go away and do their own thing outside. It's perfect. I've had times before where I get disturbed in the middle of the day and evidently have pretty poor concentration and typically crash into the wall. Unless, of course, it's a cat coming along and turning off my computer at the wall by accident, and that's a completely different story.
Well, our team has a little checklist that we all go through, and making sure that the cat is out of the room is on that list for exactly that reason. Cool. More than one of us have had that before.
Yeah, I've got a coaster on the top of my power button, so a cat can't jump on top and press it by accident now.
That's a fantastic idea. I'm going to do that as soon as I finish this podcast. Outside of sim racing, what would you say your main motorsport interests are?
Our family grew up on drag racing here in New Zealand. So my dad's been a commentator throughout the New Zealand drag racing series for, 25 years now, I guess. Mostly lower North Island. So our family's got a deep history in that. Is drag racing throughout the country. My brother does a fair bit of asphalt sprint stuff. He's got a couple of little Honda Civics that he beats about and causes a lot of damage on once in a while. As for me, not a huge amount. I've done a couple of asphalt sprint stuff. I'm into hot rodding as well, so my paycheck goes into that more so than race cars, unfortunately.
You said you've dabbled a little bit. What sort of real world racing have you done? And have you been on the quarter mile and given it some?
Yeah, I've been drag racing before. Me, my brother, and my sister to a certain extent all did junior drag racing way back in the day. What are we talking? That's probably 23-ish years ago now. That makes you feel quite older. You've done a little bit of drag racing, a little street sprint type stuff, a little bit of grass carner stuff. Nothing super official on tarmac road courses around the country. I'm pretty keen to get into something as well. Now that I'm a little bit older and have a more financial stability, it's becoming more of an option as I get a little bit older. So looking to get into something at some point in the next couple of years or so.
In terms of attending events as a spectator, is there an opportunity around where you live to go and see real world racing? And if so, what do you get to go and see?
Yeah, absolutely. I think New Zealand, for being such a small country, has so many different options available. Within a couple of hours of my place, I've got Manfield, which has open test days and racing through the summer. We've got Masterton Motorplex, which is a drag racing strip about 45 minutes from my house. We've obviously got Hampton Downs, Pukekohe as well, what was Pukekohe. We've got V8 supercars available to us as well. Then it's only a 3-hour flight over to Australia if I wanted to see some other V8 supercar stuff. The World Time Attack, I'd really like to go and see the World Time Attack in Sydney at some stage. Yeah, I did manage to go see the Singapore GP last year as part of my honeymoon. So we did plan out the honeymoon, and on the way back, we may have accidentally stopped over in Singapore, and we may have accidentally stayed there for 4 days through the GP weekend. So get to go see a little bit of different stuff, which is always quite exciting.
By accidentally, you mean you rocked up at the airport and went, hey, look, The Grand Prix happens to be on, which was a complete surprise to your now new wife, whereas you knew all along.
Something like that, yeah. We accidentally had tickets basically directly in line with Lando Norris, who got pole about 4 rows back. So I accidentally had those tickets from about 8 months out. It did cost me quite a bit of money, mind you, but they were definitely worth it.
Might have cost you a few brownie points in terms of credit with the wife for squeezing that down the honeymoon too.
A little bit. That's okay. We gave her the 5.5 weeks beforehand.
Oh, that's brilliant. Back to the majors. Kiwi Sim Racing Speed Nation. Can you tell us a little bit about that team and how you came to be involved?
So Kiwi Sim Racing has been around for 20 years, or 21 years this year. We celebrated a big 20th anniversary last year, but it did a big event. It originally started out running NASCAR race in 2003. This is actually before I joined up, so that's how far back it goes. For the real old school sim racers who are listening, quickly divulged into R Factor, the original R Factor. That's when I kind of joined up, and I've been at Kiwi Sim Racing on and off for about, I think it's 15 years now. I'm pretty sure Robert Northway, who's obviously been at the majors quite a bit, has been involved with KSR since day dot, so 20 years as well. We're basically a small little community in New Zealand. We put together events every Tuesday night, do our own leagues and stuff like that, and then we put together teams of racers who want to do special events or one-off or charity races or the majors. It's a thriving community in New Zealand, really good group of guys. If anyone in New Zealand is looking for a league to race with, or anyone outside New Zealand that works with the time zone, if you just give us a bit of a search on Google, you'll find us pretty quickly as well.
Certainly looking like the team to beat in international early doors. You said Rob went around looking for a team of people for exactly that purpose. Must be pretty happy with how the season's gone. 1, 2, 3 at Daytona, and plenty of good points for the first round as well. Started as you'd hoped, I guess.
Extremely happy. I'm quite surprised to be the person leading the championship so far, but we'll see how that changes coming up. We've got a couple of really fast guys that run road racing quite a bit, so expect someone like Dylan Jordan and Owen Baker to be extremely fast around Bathurst this weekend. I know what kind of race times Ewan's putting down already, and he has smashed me by about a second of laps. We've really got a strong team this year. Looking to really bring it home, get KSR on the map as well. So yeah, it should be really strong for the rest of the year. Robert's been really committed to the majors for a couple of years, which is actually helping us out quite a lot. In terms of format, what to expect, he's a really good setup builder as well. It was his setup we ran on the Daytona Intimidator event. So yeah, really hoping to get some good results going forward throughout the whole team.
I won't divulge any secrets, but Rob did happen to tell me one certain aspect about that setup that you guys ran that was quite unique. It certainly worked because I couldn't keep up with you guys, that's for sure. It was a good one he came up with, yeah.
He did make a last minute change. He goes, oh, this is more aggressive and a little bit looser. I'm like, I'll try that one and see how it goes. So I did no laps on that setup before he started that race. It was a little bit sketchy at the end. So it worked, but it was very close to not being so successful.
Okay, you heard it here first on Inside the Majors. Going with no practice laps on a brand new setup is the way to win a Daytona race.
Yeah, perfect. Just forget about the early crash in the race and you'll be fine.
As somebody who's managed to sneak their way into a win after taking a fast repair this year, that's exactly what it's for, right?
Absolutely. I run in a couple of different NASCAR leagues. One of them runs with a fast repair and one doesn't. I can see the merits of both ways. Where it kind of works having the fast repair is the plate tracks when there's an issue at the front and people behind them get caught up on it. That's no fault of their own. That's where it really comes into their own. Is it realistic to a certain extent? No. But I do quite enjoy it, and particularly, it's a 3.5 hour race when you're doing the Intimidator 500. So having the ability to get back into the race, really enjoy yourself, and then come out on top was actually a really good aspect as part of the majors and what they do.
And I think after putting a week's worth of effort in, to be taken out so early and essentially have your race ruined without a fast repair doesn't really pay off that effort. And also, even if you do survive, and that happens to a lot of other people, finishing a race with 6 people isn't a great reward either. Personally, I think it definitely has a place in league racing. As you said, is it realistic? Not really, but this is pretend car racing, so we can mess with the edges a little bit.
Absolutely. I think at some point there was a part about sim racing where it's about enjoyment and not just hyper-realism. I think Scops are probably one of the bigger leagues around that don't run fast repairs and have no tow rule and stuff, and I think that's good for broadcast perspective, but knowing a few people that do run those events, it gets a bit hard when you spend so much time putting work into the setup, into the driving style, the strategy, if someone doesn't launch particularly well off the line and you're stuffed, that's just a shame. So I really do appreciate it. When there's a fast repair available, I do need to use it one.
Well, like I said, I've benefited from it myself this year. So obviously, with the superstart to the series, contemplating a championship run for yourself as well as the team now, would that be part of the plan?
Yeah, I would like to. My strength is probably going to be more so the oval stuff than the other stuff going on. The issue I've got is I'm probably going to have to use a drop round in April. I'm moving house the same weekend that round 4's on. So it's going to be quite difficult to get even with you by then. We'll see how we go. That might put a damper on things, having to use a drop round for an event where I should go quite good at. But we'll see how it goes. This weekend's going to be really interesting. There's going to be some wild cards at Bathurst that aren't within the points paying people for majors this year in the international series. Making the field initially is going to be quite difficult. I think there's going to be quite a bit of pace on. And then try to get a good result is kind of my aim, and just stay out of trouble. It's Bathurst. There's a lot of stuff can happen even without weather.
Certainly around Bathurst, you're racing the track as much as anybody else. So that's probably a good attitude to take in, is to just get around and take what you get. The second you try and push, that's when you bend things, and normally the concrete wins. Ben, it's been really great to meet you virtually and catch up with you on the podcast. Thanks for giving us some time today. It's great to have new faces, or voices, as the case is in this podcast, in the series. Good luck for the rest of the season at Bathurst this weekend. Give me a wave when you lap me as you go past. I hope the rest of the season goes the way that you planned. Thanks for giving us some time on Inside the Majors.
No, thanks for having me. And I think probably vice versa. When I hit the wall at the cutting, if you give me a wave on the way past.
Thanks for listening to this part A of the return of the Inside the Majors. Keep an eye out on your podcast app of choice or the Discord for part B later this week, focused on the first 2 rounds of the Sudspeed MEC. Thanks for tuning into this part, and we'll catch you for that one.
Am technically not supposed to be on this chat at the moment. I'm not allowed to be here.